and her husband, Robert. Apparently, Claudia's brother, Jay, had recently just killed his wife, Erin, and then proceeded to kill himself afterward. At home, Kevin is having relationship troubles with his wife, Natalie, after she cheated on him. So they try to repair the relationship by going to couples therapy, as for it. However, because of its history, Natalie is immediately reluctant. The two then argue, but in the end, Natalie agrees to buy the house on the condition that Kevin will go back to college. The next morning, Claudia gives them a tour around the house. Because nobody else wants to buy it, Claudia agrees to sell it for a low price. During their first night, Odie wakes up the couple to pee, so Kevin accompanies him. But despite trying to get him upstairs, Odie refuses to follow Kevin and then starts barking at a shadow that walks behind his owner, asking him whether he went to the bathroom because she heard someone going inside it. So he calls the company and tells them that he didn't order it. Meanwhile, Natalie's keys are missing. When Natalie wakes up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, a record player starts to play music within the house. Natalie then looks for it, thinking it's Kevin, but when she turns it off, the closet behind her opens by itself. However, upon checking it, she doesn't see anyone inside. So Natalie closes it, but when she walks away to check the locks of their front door, it opens by itself again. The next day when Natalie gets off the shower, she sees a sweet message written in the fogged-up bathroom mirror saying, "Hi, beautiful." So she assumes it was from Kevin. However, he gets confused when he thanks him for it, not knowing what she's talking about. Then suddenly, Kevin gets an unknown, and despite Natalie being sure about her decision to cut her mother out of her life, Danny manages to guilt-trip her into giving in. Working on his project with Avery, Natalie sleeps alone, but suddenly wakes up because of an odd feeling. Then suddenly, she hears footsteps outside the room, followed by a hand appearing out the door. Unfortunately, when she walks to check it out, someone covers her mouth from behind. When Kevin gets home, he sees Natalie sleeping on the couch. He brings her back to the bedroom, but Natalie tells him about the situation. During their therapy session, an argument breaks out because Kevin won't believe Natalie that she's been seeing someone inside their house. Even on the way back home, their arguing won't stop. For their family dinner, Danny arrives back at their house first. She goes upstairs to change into a dress, ignoring a call from Natalie as she throws her phone on the bed. Then suddenly, Odie hears the door creaking and starts barking, which alerts Danny. She walks around the house looking for Odie, hearing the kitchen faucet turn on, so she turns it off. She then finds Odie, suddenly looking glum, so she leaves him be. Danny tries to go back upstairs, but she hears the faucet turn on again and starts to freak out, walking cautiously back to the kitchen. She also hears thudding noises upstairs, so she runs away and prepares to leave. But instead of just going out the front door, she goes upstairs to get her phone. However, she can't find it anywhere. Immediately locks herself in. Then, as she tries to hide inside the bathroom, she sees the doorknob turning, so she hides in the walk-in closet. However, it doesn't seem like she's safe because the hangers start moving and something grabs her from behind. When the couple gets back and sees nobody home, Natalie angrily looks for Danny, thinking that she flaked on their mother once more. The dinner, as expected, is unpleasant, and Natalie starts a screaming match with her mother. However, suddenly, they hear glass shattering from outside, cutting their argument. As they rush outside, they see that someone has thrown a Molotov on their car. When they report it to the police, Officer Richardson, however, Natalie tries to clear the misunderstanding. Richardson then asks them whether they know anyone who'd do that to them, to ask her about the house's history and the gruesome murder that happened there. So Claudia tells her how Jay cheated on Erin between the two. She says that Erin was the only one who designed the house, so she believes her brother wasn't the one who committed the murder and there was no way he killed himself. However, Natalie doesn't want to suffer too much financial loss, so she declines, making Robert feel irritated because he thinks they took advantage of his grieving wife. They quickly take him to the vet, and Kevin immediately informs Natalie about what happened. Unfortunately, the doctor tells them that Odie might have ingested something poisonous that's making his heart deteriorate, and suggests that they should just put him to sleep. Back home, they find a bouquet waiting outside for Natalie, allegedly sent by Nick, which quickly causes an issue between the two. That night, Natalie hears mysterious sounds once more and wakes Kevin up, who dismisses her at first, but immediately wakes up when he hears them too. He then tells Natalie to call the cops, but her phone is missing. They both run to find the source of the noise, but unfortunately, they see nothing. They call Richardson, who asks for information but they don't have any leads to give him. However, Natalie finally decides to open up about previous incidents she's experienced despite Kevin's protest. She tells Richardson about the thin and pale man she's been seeing, who crawled into the hallway and attacked her. Richardson thinks it's odd because she didn't report it at the time, so she says it's because Kevin kept on insisting that she was just having nightmares. When the cops leave, Kevin angrily turns to Natalie about how crazy she sounded as they start arguing again. Natalie then suggests they reinforce the cameras, and although he disagrees at first, he ends up having the system installed anyway, alongside the mobile-controlled house locks. While at work, Kevin suddenly starts throwing up. Meanwhile, Natalie's getting pressured at work because she isn't meeting the deadline to deliver the clothes, so Nick asks her if he could do anything to help. Natalie then confronts him about the flowers, but Nick tells her that he didn't send anything. However, as she's about to send a picture of the letter to Nick, she finds photos of her while asleep on her phone. As if that's not enough, the record player starts playing again, making her feel scared. When Natalie hears thudding noises, she doesn't hesitate to call 911 immediately. But when she goes back to her office, she sees that it's just a tree branch knocking on her window. So she tells the dispatchers that she made a mistake and doesn't need the police. However, she sees the man appear in her office, so she runs to the door, but she can't operate the mobile lock. She then hides in the bedroom as the man chases after her and frantically calls 911 again. But Natalie sees the man's shadow inside the room with her. While Natalie's running upstairs for dear life, Kevin arrives and looks for her downstairs. Cornered, Natalie jumps off the balcony and into the swimming pool as a hand tries to grab her. Kevin then saves Natalie from the pool but doesn't see anyone on the balcony. When the police arrive, Natalie immediately asks if they caught anyone, but unfortunately, they found no one. Meanwhile, Kevin still doesn't believe her and thinks that Nick probably took the pictures on her phone. Terrified and angered, Natalie leaves and sleeps at a hotel, but Kevin stays at home. One day, Richardson calls Kevin to the precinct to talk about the incident. The officer shows security footage from the house of Natalie running away, but no one was chasing her. Richardson also clarifies that Natalie's story is inconsistent with the evidence. They go to couples therapy, where they argue about the same thing again, and Kevin implies that Natalie is going crazy. She tells him that they could sell the house back to Robert, but this just makes Kevin angry that she would disturb a grieving family. Then, on their walk back home, Kevin starts doubling over in pain and passes out. When he gets checked at the hospital, Natalie learns that Nerium, a lethal poisoning agent, is found in Kevin's bloodstream, but she doesn't know how he could have gotten it. Natalie then gets questioned by Richardson, asking how it could have happened. Unfortunately, she seems to be the prime suspect for the reason that she wants to get back with Nick, or maybe because she's crazy. Enraged, Natalie leaves the prison and gets the camcorders that she sets up in front of their bed to get answers. The next night, a teenager, Travis, comes by with flowers for Natalie and starts complimenting her. She immediately sends him away, but he forces his way inside the house and tries to violate her. Natalie then struggles against him, fighting back until she reaches the sisters on the floor and stabs him on the back. The couple goes to the police, and Richardson tells them they've seen footage of him surveying the house for a while. However, they couldn't put him under arrest. Apparently, Robert has been sabotaging them secretly. He's the one who posted about the white supremacy group with their address, the one who sent Natalie flowers, and he also made Kevin subscribe to indecent magazines. Lastly, he posted on a forum while pretending to be Natalie, who wanted to be surprised at home by strangers and have a one-night stand. Robert did all that because he wants their house back. But once he's taken into custody, he denies entering the couple's property and poisoning Kevin and Odie. Because of everything that's happening, Natalie tells Kevin that they should take a temporary break from their relationship. The next day in class, Kevin gets a text from Natalie telling him not to come home. That night, while Kevin is at Avery's, he ignores the call from Natalie because he thinks she doesn't want him home. However, when he listens to her voicemail, he gets confused because Natalie wants him to come back. Then, while Natalie lounges in the tub, she gets a call from Kevin asking her why she would want him to come back after texting him not to. Naturally, Natalie gets puzzled and says she never texted him that. Natalie goes to check the camcorders that she left in their room and sees a man crawl out from under their bed, seemingly infatuated with her. Unfortunately, as she watches the footage, a man comes out from behind the walls inside the closet. He then grabs Natalie from behind and sedates her. And when she wakes up, she finds herself in a creepy room. chained to a dingy bed. Looking around, she sees TV monitors and security footage of their house, as well as their security controls. Then on the wall, there are photographs of deceased couples, Aaron and Jay, and pictures of her and Kevin. Natalie tries to struggle from the chains, but the man Otto suddenly appears, the guy that Aaron was having an affair with. As it turns out, Aaron built the house to have a secret room and hidden passageways behind the walls, so she could keep Otto with her while still living with her husband. However, in the end, Aaron chose Jay, making Otto angry, so he murdered both. Natalie starts talking to Otto, sympathizing with him, so he kisses her. She then plays along, not wanting to trigger him into doing anything dangerous. However, when Otto sees Kevin coming home from the security footage, he almost puts Natalie to sleep again. But Natalie pleads for mercy, telling him to kill Kevin so they could be together, which is just a ruse to buy her time to escape. Otto gags Natalie so she can scream, then moves through the passageways to get to Kevin. Then once he's gone, Natalie takes her chance to break free from the chains by hanging her hand on a nearby shelf. Meanwhile, Kevin starts looking for Natalie and sees someone on the bed, thinking it's her. However, when he tries to touch her, he finds blood on his hands and realizes that it's Danny's dead body. Luckily, when Otto's about to ambush Kevin, Natalie shouts just in time for him to turn around and defend himself from the man. Kevin manages to take the injection away from Otto while Natalie scrambles to call the police and get back upstairs. Unfortunately, Otto overpowers Kevin and knocks him out before leaving. Natalie tries to hide from Otto, but he eventually catches her in her office. He pins her down on the table, attempting to sedate her again. But she catches him off guard by flashing a light on his face and bashing his head with the device. Still, Otto recovers and tries to choke Natalie, but thankfully, Kevin sedates him and pulls him away from his wife, who stabs him in the chest. The police then arrive, and they finally put a conclusion to the nightmare they've been living. A month later, they move out of the house, and as they leave, they don't see the closet door once again closing on its own.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.